Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on today's rescheduled Wednesday Wise webinar. My name is Sydney Konahia, and I'm with the International Franchise Association, and we have a great webinar lined up for you guys this afternoon. Before we get started, there's a couple of things I want to touch on. Today's webinar will be recorded, so it'll be uploaded on community.franchise.org this evening. And if you have any questions for the speakers today, please add those to the chat box and they will address them towards the end of the session. And lastly, I will be uploading a PDF of the slide deck in a toolbar, so you can access that there and download it. And I'll also leave my email address in the chat box if you would rather me send that to you after. So today's topic is, will 2022 bring the death of direct mail? And that's brought to us by Deliver Media. Our speakers today are Sean Johnson, the president and CEO of Deliver Media, and we have Nate Black, who is an account manager with Deliver Media. Thank you so much, Sean and Nate, for joining us today, and thank you, Deliver Media, for sponsoring today's webinar. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Sean and Nate to get us started.
Awesome. Thank you, Sydney. So like Sydney mentioned, the topic of the webinar today is direct mail. And specifically, as we move into 2022, is direct mail dead or alive? We've got a lot of very strong opinions to share with you today and some great info, but we'd like for this to be interactive. So if you do have any questions, feel free to type those in the chat. Nate will be answering those on the fly. And then we can also fold some into our discussion. So let's go ahead and dig in. Maybe. There we go. So who am I and what do I know? My name is Sean Johnson, for those of you that I haven't met. I'm the CEO of Deliver Media, and my company partners with brands in the franchise space to help them leverage first and third-party data for deeper business insights and powerful marketing campaigns. I cut my teeth in the direct mail space 20 years ago. So I've seen the most primitive kinds of direct mail you can imagine, and have been a part of the direct mail evolution, and have seen some pretty advanced campaigns today. I will say that even though Deliver Media executes tens of thousands of direct mail campaigns each year, we're not tied to the channel. And what I mean by that is if you visit Deliver Media, you won't see any printing equipment or a direct mail fulfillment house, no equipment at all. We use vendors for that. So we're data centric and a data analytics company. While direct mail is performing for us, we'll use it. If there comes a day where it doesn't perform or certain types of direct mail don't perform, we'll abandon it just like you. So it's important to point out that I see direct mail through the same exact lens that you do. So when you hear the term direct mail, what is it that you see? For many of you, it's likely something very similar to what you see on the screen here. The dinosaur of the marketing space, an antiquated vehicle that's dead and gone. I can tell you, I also talk to many marketers that feel like direct mail is the most effective marketing channel that they have. So why the disparity? Well, the fact is direct mail is a really broad term. Saying I use direct mail is very similar to saying I use digital marketing. We all know that there are many types of digital marketing, some more effective than others for your business. It's the very same way with direct mail. And even though there are types of direct mail that I firmly believe have gone the way of the dinosaur, there are also types of direct mail that resemble Jurassic Park, right? Where they've come back bigger, faster, stronger than ever. And what powers that is data and predictive analytics. So today we'll cover the full gamut of types of direct mail and talk to you about which ones we feel like look like the picture you see on the left-hand side of the screen or the right-hand side of the screen. The agenda today is on the screen, so we're going to start by talking about targeting, and we'll talk about the types of direct mail that exist as defined by their targeting. And the reason for that is over the 20 years that I've been in the space, the greatest evolution has happened with respect to the people that can be targeted with direct mail campaigns. So I feel that that's kind of the core element of direct mail evolution. We'll then talk about how you can make smarter decisions pre-campaign, throughout the course of the campaign, or even leveraging data from campaigns. We'll go over a checklist for success. So if you are contemplating direct mail for 2022, this checklist can help you tee it up so you're as successful as possible. And then we'll talk about what I feel to be absolutely critical analysis and adjustments. So how you can really track the effectiveness of direct mail and make those adjustments to create kind of sustained success. So I know I just said that direct mail is a really broad term, but it's absolutely a simple concept. No matter what type of direct mail you're executing, it's made up of three parts: the pieces that you're producing or the print, the people that you're targeting, your audience, and campaign logistics. Now, we'll certainly talk about some elements of print or campaign logistics that have developed over the past 20 years that we feel are important. But again, we're really going to focus on the target audience that you can affect with direct mail. So as we go through the types of direct mail as defined by their targeting, we're going to use our handy dandy Alivo-meter here to let you know if we feel like the type of direct mail we're discussing is in fact dead and gone or alive and well. So the first type of direct mail we're going to dig into here is marriage mail. And my guess is every single person on this webinar is intimately familiar with some form of marriage mail. When I started 20 years ago in the marketing space, I was certainly placing plenty of freestanding inserts or oversized inserts in Red Plum, which at the time was Advo. My company had a proprietary product that we inserted into Valpak, and our clients were generating significant results with these campaigns. I can tell you they look very much the same as they did 20 years ago. The premise of a marriage mail vehicle is, you're able to share the cost of print and distribution with, sometimes hundreds of other advertisers. So this is really the essence of buying direct mail as a commodity. You're able to get the lowest cost per piece possible. And, when you look at your direct mail budget, you're getting the highest number of exposures that you can possibly get. The targeting is very broad. So I know with Red Plum, you're targeting ATZ zones that are sometimes even larger than zip codes, actually very often. You're committing to a broad geographic area, typically over 10,000 exposures per campaign. So there's really zero targeting. You're hitting everyone in a broad area. They're all getting the exact same ad. So we call this spray and pray. And really the goal of marriage mail or mass saturation campaigns is twofold. It's branding, and then it's also prospecting. And so for the last 20 years, those are the two problems that companies were trying to solve with marriage mail. Now, this is absolutely an example of where the kind of rise of digital marketing over the past 20 years has overtaken a version of direct mail. There's just simply a better place for your budget if you're looking to prospect or you're looking to create kind of brand recognition. And that's not to say that you'll never get a positive return on investment on a marriage mail campaign. It's just that there are better options out there for you. Here are a few stats to kind of back up my opinion here. First, 2% say they make purchases based on this type of mail. Only 5% said they look at this type of mail and sometimes make purchases. 23% said they sometimes look through this type of mail and make purchases rarely. And then 70% said they hardly ever look at this type of mail. So an overwhelming majority of the exposures that you're paying for here are filed in the square bin that you see on the left-hand side. So for this reason, I believe marriage mail is dead. Again, you can absolutely get response. You may have, executed a Valpak or a Red Plum recently, and you felt like sales were good. My opinion is there's a better place for that budget. Next type of direct mail we'll tackle is zip code saturation. Now, to be crystal clear with what we're talking about here, we've moved to a solo direct mail piece. So you've got a postcard or a trifold. You're the only advertiser on that piece. So it stands to reason you've got a much higher quality exposure. People are not digging through a folder or an envelope to see your direct mail campaign. It's technically to individuals. So when a solo direct mail piece goes out, it's sorted with the letters and the bills, the first class mail. So instead of being buried in that folder or envelope, it's clearly visible. The difference is really postage and distribution. So for that higher quality distribution, you're then bearing the entire cost of print and postage, as well as the executing the campaign itself. So your cost per piece is much higher than marriage mail, but you're much more likely for people to see that campaign. So we're going to graphically represent how we feel about saturating entire zip codes. So you can see our animation here. We've got a mail carrier that's going through an entire zip code, and it's really efficient for them because when you're saturating a zip code, the mail carriers, they don't even have to sort that mail. So they've got their tray of first class mail, they've got a stack of postcards. They just take your stack of postcards, and when they pull the first class mail out for an individual address, they grab a postcard, slap it on top of the stack, and then put it in the mailbox. So really efficient. When you're executing a targeted mailing, they actually have to hand sort that mail at the post office or use automation equipment throughout the postal stream. The goal of a targeted mailing is to eliminate a portion of the zip code that's not a likely responder or not a likely customer. So in essence, zip code saturation, it is really efficient, and for that efficiency, the post office will pass on some postage savings. So you absolutely have a lower cost per piece. However, even though you're paying a higher cost per piece with targeted mailings, you're likely eliminating a portion of that audience where your communication would fall on deaf ears. So you've got a lower overall cost. So a higher cost per piece, but in essence, a lower overall cost and typically a higher return on investment. For this reason, I believe firmly zip code saturation is dead. The importance and abundance of data that's out there makes this really a primitive way to send out a solo direct mail piece. Next, we're going to talk about carrier route saturation and EDDM. So for those not intimately familiar with the postal system, a carrier route is a small geographic territory within a zip code. A mail carrier shows up at the local post office and grabs the mail for the same, call it 500 addresses on a daily basis, and they deliver that mail in the same exact order to the same addresses every single day. So that's hence the term carrier route. The postal system created a DIY mechanism for saturating carrier routes about a decade ago called EDDM, or every door direct mail. Now, the nice thing about EDDM is you can print postcards in stacks of, or you can print, say, 10,000, 20,000 postcards for each location, and then either your vendor or someone at your location can separate or group them into bundles of 50 and just have them at the ready. So then if you decide you want to execute a direct mail campaign, somebody at the location can go to the USPS website, select the carrier routes that you'd like to mail, print the corresponding paperwork, grab the right number of bundles of postcards, and then take it up to the local post office. Now, the nice thing is you've decided to execute a campaign one day, and that mail is typically in mailboxes the very next day. So that's something that very few, if any, vendors can provide to you. So when should this be used? Really, EDDM should be reserved for times where you kind of need that shot in the arm or resuscitation. So let's say it's Wednesday, you're up against big year-over-year sales. You've got a competitor that launched maybe an unexpected marketing campaign, or naturally your sales are trending lower than you expected. Well, the nice thing is if you have postcards on site, you can contemplate an EDDM campaign and then get that out in the mail stream on Thursday to start affecting your sales. But why not prevent yourself from getting sick in the first place? So through exercise, vitamins, eating your vegetables, in this case, a targeted cadence of direct mail, which more and more marketers are committing to. You can use human and machine learning mechanisms to make sure that those trends, those negative trends, are identified quickly and addressed behind the scenes. So for this reason, I believe carrier route saturation, and more specifically EDDM, is dying off. As more marketers commit to that targeted cadence, the need for that shot in the arm is dwindling. So I know I've been overly negative so far. We talked about 3 types of direct mail. All 3 of them, I believe, are either dead or dying. And some of you may be thinking that, hey, I do a lot of, EDDM campaigns or Valpak or Red Plum. The fact is, over 95% of direct mail that's distributed is distributed with one of these 3 techniques. So it's an overwhelming majority of the marketing channel. And so that's why I believe that there's the impression that direct mail is antiquated, it's becoming less effective over time, and it's being overtaken by digital channels. The fact is, a lot of the stats that you're seeing from vendors are based on historical campaign results. These types of campaigns have existed for over a decade in almost exactly the same form. So you have to be very careful of those. And you can absolutely get positive response from any of the 3 types of campaigns we've gone over, but I firmly believe that there are digital channels that will perform better and generate a higher return on investment. So next, we're going to dig into the types of campaigns that I feel like there really is a place for in the marketing space. And the first is targeting consumers, right? So this involves accessing a consumer database and buying a mailing list, right? So many of us have applied selection criteria, like you see here on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, to a geographic territory to help generate a mailing list. I feel like my customers are between 35 and 55 years of age. Their income is below 100,000. They've got a home value between $250,000 and $500,000, and for whatever reason, they typically own cats, right? So now I can access a consumer database, and I'll typically use this when I don't have my own data to draw from, either lead data or customer data. Now, in essence, what you're doing here is you're eliminating people that are not within the criteria. So go through a bit of a paradigm shift here. Instead of selecting individuals that you'd like to campaign to, what you're doing is you're applying filters to the geographic area that you can campaign to eliminate people that aren't within these brackets. By applying selection criteria with the age bracket you see here, in essence, what you're doing is you're eliminating people that are below 35 years of age or above 55. So this is certainly more targeted than the prior types of direct mail because you're starting to think beyond the manufacturing model and buying as many exposures as you can possibly get. And you're kind of customer centric, all right? You're developing a profile of who you feel like your customer is, and you're letting that draw or drive the audience. That being said, it is very limited because you don't have any customer data, right? None of what you're doing here involves how these customers or prospects have transacted with your business. So it is limited in that respect. I do feel like this has a place in the direct mail space, and should be a part of your marketing mix, specifically if you don't have that first party data to draw from, right? Starting to, you have other resources that can help you identify who your customers are and kind of what they look and feel like. So there's really robust data in a consumer database, and you can pick out a pretty specific audience. So for those of you that don't have customer data, I feel like targeted consumer mailings are alive and well. In fact, we execute a ton of them at Deliver Media, and we can refine those audiences over time. You can do the same thing to generate really positive results. So now we're going to move into customer mailings here. And this is for brands that have customer data in their point of sale or CRM. And specifically, you're collecting customer records and transactional data. And those customer records include physical street address. And that's really important to point out. To leverage or access data for direct mail, you need the physical street address. Customer mailings are good for some businesses and scenarios. So if you see the lawn care brand on the right-hand side, if the goal of their marketing is to acquire customers for the $129 a month out of the box service, then mailing to customers doesn't make a whole lot of sense. unless you're asking for referrals or trying to prevent attrition periodically, the opportunity for incremental revenue is pretty low. It's a little better for Stanley Steamer, like you see here. Certainly, executing direct mail campaigns to the right customers around holiday time, where there's likely to be company, or focusing marketing campaigns on homes with kids where there's likely to be spills. There are certainly opportunities for the service to be consumed spontaneously and periodically. And then finally, customer mailings are extremely applicable for companies like Massage Envy, where your need or desire for a massage starts to develop the second you walk out their door, particularly for customers that come in frequently, that drop off, or incremental revenue pushes to the customer base. For companies that are in this bucket, customer mailings can be extremely effective. Now, what most companies do is, or at least a lot of companies that we talk to, is they communicate to their customer base when they have something to say. So the direct mail communication is driven by the message. Maybe they have a new product or service, they're launching a new promotion or offer, and what they do is they communicate that to their entire customer base, or maybe recent customers. The thing is, over time, that database of customers grows, and it becomes a really large file. So it becomes really important to determine which customers to mail, and we'll tackle that in just a second. Before we do, I'd like to communicate that customer mailings, in my opinion, are pivotal if you have first-party data. So if you're executing customer mailings when you have something to say, right, you've got a new product or service, this is very much alive. The nice thing about direct mail is it's really the only channel where you can guarantee that 95% plus of the audience that you're campaigning to will see your exposure, right? There's no junk direct mail inbox. So if you've got a message that you'd like to communicate to your customers, direct mail is a very effective way to do so. That being said, if you have customer data, just kind of mailing messages to your customers is alive, and there's a place for it, but it's not as alert as it can be. The direct mail space has really evolved quite a ways beyond this. The first improvement you can make is by segmenting your customers. So 52% of consumers say that they would switch brands if they weren't getting relevant custom messages and offers. Like, we've all gone to the mailbox and picked something out that just doesn't speak to us, right? It was a wasted exposure. 10 years ago, my wife never lets me live this down, but I got an advertisement for ARP. So I was 30 years old at the time, and she loves to make jokes about that today. But it was kind of a wasted exposure. At 40, maybe not so much. But as you can see here, you can, with simple segmentation, you can identify unique groups within your customer database, like the ones you see here. And it stands to reason that all 4 of these groups would need a different type of communication. Should be welcoming new customers, coddling MVP customers, trying to win more orders from brand switchers, and trying to win back lost customers. So if you send the same message to all 4 of these segments, you're really doing yourself a bit of a disservice. Now, the nice thing with the advancement of point of sale and CRM systems is you can typically execute a simple query to identify a customer segment. So you really don't need a data scientist, and you can identify segments like the ones we just discussed, or even customers who purchased a specific product or service, or very relevant currently, customers who received a delayed order, where you can apologize and try to win that next one. So really, the nice thing about customer segments is you have a business goal in mind, and that drives the customer segment that you're marketing to. So customer segment mailings are absolutely alive. They're even more alive than communicating a general message to your entire customer base, but they're still not as alert as they can be. So now you have advanced your ability to message with relevant messaging, but there's still, we were executing customer segment mailings 10 years ago. Since then, the direct mail landscape has really advanced. So the next kind of message we'd like to give to you is there's data outside of your customer database, your CRM or point of sale system, that you can leverage to enrich your customer data. And that just helps you better understand exactly who your customers are. And that exists within a national consumer database. So if you've ever accessed a consumer database to build a mailing list, you've already kind of tinkered around with this. There's, a variety of very reputable providers that have a robust database of every single address in the country. There's 700 demographic and psychographic traits on every individual, every residence. And, really what this does by appending consumer data, demographic and psychographic traits to your customer data, you're enriching that data, right? You understand not only how these people are transacting with your business, but really who they are, what their interests are, what their demographic composition is. And so this empowers both the brand and your franchisees to focus marketing efforts on the most likely buyers. So by combining first and third party data, you can immediately answer questions like, what's the average income of my customer base? How does household income relate to purchase frequency or average ticket? What percentage of my customer base is under 30 or 31 to 50? And then really importantly, by understanding more about your customers, you can better answer the question, who's most likely to mirror these customers? So I'll fast forward all the way to the present. Instead of using selection criteria to pick what you feel like are the best 10,000 names to campaign to, by appending third-party data to your first-party data and applying a predictive model, you can then identify the individuals in your trade area that score the highest as far as their probability to respond to your campaign and then become your customers, like Joe Prospect. In addition, once you've enriched your data, you have the ability not just to study what's happened in the past, but you can gain the ability to predict what will happen in the future. And that's through predictive analytics. I can tell you historically, a difficult conversation was always, a prospective client asking me what kind of results they can expect before they executed the first campaign. I always say, if anybody answers that question, without a ton of data behind it, run for the hills. The nice thing is, as you execute campaigns powered by predictive analytics, you can absolutely predict the results that you'll get for individual stores within your system with the different types of campaigns that you implement. Here's an example of predictive analytics-driven campaigns for prospecting, and this is in Shelferie, a home services company, part of the Neighborly Group. On the left-hand side, you see the goal of the campaign. It was a simple acquisition play. So what we did is we enriched their customer data with third-party data. We created a customer clone model to identify the highest probability prospects in each trade area. And then the results of the campaigns you can see on the right-hand side. So we wanted to pull very recent and relevant data. All these campaigns were run between the beginning of this year and August 25th. Of 2021. There were 30 participating territories, over 200 unique mailings, just under 500,000 pieces mailed, 754 leads were generated, and those converted into 630 appointments. So that lead to appointment conversion rate of 83.55%. That's extremely high compared to other marketing channels. So they're more efficient to move through the lead funnel. We generated just under $1.5 million in revenue, and that resulted in a 533% return on investment. So not only, when franchisees are investing $1, not only are they generating $5.33 in return, but they've got a lot of really highly qualified leads coming in the door. Here's an example with predictive analytics-driven customer mailings, and this is Domino's Pizza, our largest client. And on the left-hand side, you can see there are typically multiple goals that we're executing at the same time within individual campaigns. So we're certainly using predictive analytics. We've got multiple models acting on their database each week. We're identifying the best opportunities for each store before the campaign, and then we're letting the predictive models drive the audience. One of the most effective models you can see in the bottom left-hand corner. An attrition model helps each store prevent attrition by identifying the portion of the customer database most likely to attrite before that behavior occurs. And then you can see the results of the campaign on the right-hand side. Same exact window, it's January 1st through August 25th of this year. We had 1,110 stores campaigning. There were over 12,000 unique mailings, over 11 million pieces. You can see that the average response rate in 28 days was 37.82%. And the nice thing about direct mail is we're able to reserve a control group that we're not campaigning to, so we can compare the results of that campaign file to the control group. And here we generated an incremental response rate of 21%. That amounted to over $60 million in incremental revenue and over 1,000% return on investment. So obviously franchisees are extremely happy when they invest $1 and they get 10 in return. But more importantly, for every single franchisee and every single store, that revenue was pointed at segments of their business, very specific segments that they were interested in affecting. And that's the nice thing about predictive analytics. It's, more than just kind of measuring response and even return on investment. If you can identify a behavior in your point of sale or your CRM, so in your transactional data, if you can identify a behavior that you'd like to grow or shrink, promote or discourage, you can use predictive analytics to do so. So here you have some examples. A renewal or win-back model can help you identify lapsed customers that are likely to re-engage. A lifetime value model can help you identify the portion of your customer base that's likely to spend more or purchase more frequently. A promotion-specific model can help you identify customers or prospects that are likely to engage with a specific promotion. And then event-based models can help you boost business at holiday time or in conjunction with, say, Monday Night Football. So again, you're focusing on segments of your business that you would like to affect and then building predictive analytics around that very specific business goal. So it stands to reason, based on my enthusiasm here, that I believe predictive analytics-driven direct mail is absolutely alive and kicking, both for prospective customer mailings as well as customer mailings. In fact, they're some of the most advanced marketing campaigns in the space. Once you've invested in building predictive analytics to drive marketing campaigns, both through direct mail and even digital channels, you can leverage that data to help you make smarter decisions. So again, being able to answer that question, what type of results can I expect when executing a campaign, you can actually get to that answer. Here's an example of a kind of a simple report for Domino's Pizza that's available on our dashboard. A franchisee can log in and see that they've got 2,424 lapsed customers. The value of each customer that they can convert into a frequent customer is just under $707 a year. Those types of mailings in stores very similar to theirs will generate or are generating a 26.21 average response rate. And so if they execute the 2,424 piece mailing, their potential revenue boost over 28 days is $12,155, right? So they can easily see what the investment is and if the campaign is worth it. So based on the historical response to campaigns, by storing those campaign files and comparing that to customer data on an ongoing basis, we can really gain wisdom through experience. Stepping back into the macro just for a minute, at the corporate level, as you're evaluating your business goals and initiatives, you can actually apply that same predictive analytics to help raise your decision IQ. So we call these KDIs, or key decision indicators. When you're seeing certain indicators with predictive analytics that can point you in the right direction, we like to say this helps raise your decision IQ. So by assigning a probability score to each business goal, you can then reorder them according to your opportunity to be successful. Now, that doesn't mean that because Win More New Customers scores pretty low on this list, that you're going to completely abandon prospecting. What it does mean is when you build out your marketing initiatives, you can start with the lowest hanging fruit first and kind of work your way up the tree. So the next section here goes through a checklist for success. And if you compare, kind of the first type of direct mail that I reviewed, marriage mail, to predictive analytics driven direct mail campaigns that are driving a very specific business goal, you can see that there really is a night and day difference. But still, the majority of the direct mail space is composed of those kind of primitive campaigns. So if you're contemplating direct mail for 2022, here's a checklist for success so you can launch the most evolved types of direct mail for your brand. The first step is you really have to commit to evolved campaign logistics. And this is taking the process that we all used to use to buy direct mail as a commodity and flipping it completely upside down. You start with your business goal, right? Identify a very specific business goal that you're trying to accomplish. And the nice thing with direct mail, and I'll beat this to death, is if you're using predictive analytics, you can be really, really specific about that. So you can try to affect kind of a micro segment of your business in a big way. So identify what that business goal is up front. Let that dictate your mailing list. So compile a mailing list of individuals that are most likely to help you achieve that goal. Then define the elements of personalization. So are you more in the Domino's pizza bucket where each campaign has 3 or 4 different goals and you need to speak to the different customer segments individually? Or are you more singular in your focus like Shelf Genie where we're just prospecting and we're promoting the advantages of the brand? So define how much personalization you need. Let that then dictate the print format that you'll use. So if you need a lot of personalization, you're likely going to use a postcard if you'd like to be very efficient. If you need no personalization at all, you can really open up the print portfolio. Then and only then, once you've selected your print format and you've got the full scope of your campaign that's best tailored for your brand, would you pick the best vendor? All right, so now you can pick a vendor the same way you used to. Who's most efficient for this print format? Who's got the lowest price and the best service, right? But it all is kind of pointed at helping you achieve your business goal. Step number 2 is to commit to results analysis and adjustments, right? And the nice thing about direct mail is there's an abundance of data to draw from. So the first step is identify your relevant KPIs. What's important to your brand? Is it response rate, revenue growth over time, cost per lead, cost per acquisition, conversion rate, time to close, average sale, return on investment? The list goes on and on. So what KPIs are you trying to affect or improve with your direct mail moving into 2022? Step number 3, identify or build reporting to track each KPI. So once you've identified that a KPI is important, you need to figure out where you can track it. Does your point of sale or CRM offer reporting where you can track the progress of some of those KPIs? Does your vendor offer reporting where you can track some of those KPIs? Or do you need to build something custom, right? So you can get tracking for the full scope of KPIs that you'd like to look at. Next step is to set expectations up front for KPI progress. I can tell you this is something that I've really enjoyed about the pilot that we're running with Home Instead Senior Care right now. The corporate office was excellent throughout the process to help us identify the KPIs that we were trying to affect and to set benchmarks. So we knew exactly going in what success and failure looked like. Step number 5, commit to the cadence for analysis, right? Put it on your calendar. It's a very important task. And I know sometimes when sales are moving in the right direction, sometimes we lack the motivation or the time right, to go in and run the analysis on direct mail campaigns. It's just very important, if you'd like to methodically improve the results you're getting over time, to commit to a cadence. 6, when you're executing that analysis, look for the KDIs. Identify and implement necessary adjustments based on the deviation from your KPI benchmark, right? So if you see that you're overperforming or underperforming when it comes to specific KPIs, figure out how you can better affect them. And then 7, and this is extremely important, avoid knee-jerk reactions or complacency. You know, particularly with the evolution of direct mail as it pertains to machine learning. If you're implementing predictive analytics with machine learning, you've got to compile or aggregate statistically relevant data, right? So too often do I see, you know, someone kind of lay out a 6-month or 12-month direct mail pilot, and then after the first campaign goes out, maybe the results were, you know, double what we were expecting, and they're throwing more budget at the campaigns. Well, you certainly could be looking at a false positive there. And the other side of the coin is also true. Complacency is also a killer of long-term response. If you're not investing the time to stick to that cadence and identify those KDIs and tweak your direct mail campaigns with both human learning and machine learning, then even though you're happier with the results, you could be getting more. So, you know, I feel like if you're contemplating direct mail for 2022, this is kind of a 7-step process that you can follow to make sure you're teed up for success. And that's what we have for you today. Hopefully you have something that you can take away and improve, you know, your existing direct mail campaigns, or to help you plan for 2022 if you're launching new ones. If you want a little bit more info, feel free to text GUIDE to 33777, and we'll respond back with 7 questions to ask about your data right now. After going through this whole webinar, I'm sure you can see that data is the common thread in what we feel like and how we feel like the direct mail industry has evolved. So hopefully this is another good tool for you. That's all I have today. Nate, were there any questions that you weren't able to answer in the chat?
Yeah, Sean, we had a few come through. The first one was, can you speak to the size of an ideal mailing list and the ideal number of drops when you're doing a direct mail campaign?
That's a really good question. So as far as the ideal size of a mailing list, it really depends on the business goal. So I think that's maybe a step that you can take in the middle of the planning process. So if you're starting with the business goal, I'm trying to affect X in my business. Let's say, you know, you're trying to gain more new customers. Well, you know, the size of the mailing list should be dictated based on how many ideal prospects you have in the territory. I will say that, you know, there are certainly brackets based on budget. So if you start with the budget that you have overall for direct mail and relate that to a price per piece and how many pieces you can get, you know, you don't want to be too far above or too far below that. Within our client base, I know we have some mailings that go out weekly with as low as 300 pieces per drop, just to kind of keep trigger-based mailings going out and a nice targeted cadence. And then we have others that are as high as, you know, 2,500 pieces per location, typically reserved for high volume locations or really high opportunity locations. So it's a really roundabout way of answering, but let the data dictate the number of pieces you send out.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Another question came in, Sean. This is more on the B2B side of things. So from a B2B perspective, is an EDDM system available? And if not, what would be the best strategy for a B2B play?
Yeah, another good question. So EDDM is not available for B2B. So EDDM really leverages the efficiency of the postal system, where you've got a mail carrier delivering to every single address. And so if you're committed to sending out a piece to every single address, and then you can use every door direct mail because it's delivered to the local post office in a way that's very efficient for them to distribute. So, you know, that doesn't exist in the business space. you can absolutely execute business saturation mailings. What I would recommend is if you have a lot of locations or a lot of businesses within your area, you can access business firmographics that'll give you some characteristics on businesses, like number of employees, revenue, industry that they're in, to help you target the very same way you would with a consumer database file.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yep.
Another question came in here, Sean. What types of questions should I ask my current direct mail vendor to make sure I'm getting the best product and service?
Good question. So, really, number one, are you leveraging every type of data that's applicable to my business, right? So as you can see, with the types of direct mail that we went through today, we start with absolutely no data, and then, we end with multiple predictive models acting on your customer data. So, you'll know if you have first-party data in your CRM or point of sale system, and if you do, if the answer is yes, do you have data scientists in-house that can create predictive analytics with my data and third-party data? If you're, simple question, if you don't have first-party data, is what national consumer database they're using to create the target audience. So there are a handful of reputable vendors like Infogroup, Experian, Axiom. Just making sure that that data source is a reputable one is a good question.
Great. Another one came in that says, what kind of customer data is most valuable when looking to enhance a direct mail strategy and targeting?
Well, the first step is you definitely need physical street address, right? So, in order to, obviously direct mail is based on sending exposures to physical street addresses. So you need to be storing that with each customer record, and then appending transactions, so you can see what customers are buying, how often they're buying, those very specific dates. All of that can be, and if they're using a coupon offer, things like that you can feed into predictive analytics. So really, the more the merrier with data fields, but the number one most important criteria is physical street address.
Gotcha. And then one last question here, Sean. Is direct mail more successful as an ad hoc strategy or a consistent piece of the marketing mix?
Yeah, so there are definitely some ad hoc applications for direct mail, but if you'd like to kind of implement the most evolved version of direct mail, committing to a targeted cadence, starting with your business goals, building predictive analytics around each business goal, and letting that act upon your database as often as it's updated, will dictate how often you should launch campaigns. You can clearly recognize if you kind of build it the right way, when there's an opportunity or a need or a challenge in each location, and that can dictate how often you launch campaigns. For the most part though, kind of setting a targeted cadence over a 6 or 12-month period will give you more opportunities to make those human and machine learning adjustments. So typically at the end of that pilot or period, you've got the most successful version of direct mail for your brand.
Gotcha. And we have time for one more, Sydney?
Yeah.
Great.
Yep, you guys have time.
The last question. Someone saw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers helmet over your shoulder. Do you consider them a viable contender to repeat this Super Bowl season?
I will tell you, I have been in Tampa since I was 5 years old. We had tickets at the old Sombrero, season tickets. I saw a lot of bad Buccaneer football. It's absolutely surreal that we have Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, and the list goes on and on. I would never count that guy out. I feel like he plays until he's 55 years old, and he's still the #1 quarterback in the league. So firm yes on that one.
Nice. That looks like that's it for the questions.
All right, thanks, Nate.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sean and Nate, for giving us your time today. And thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar. And again, just to cover the two things I mentioned in the beginning, this webinar was recorded, so it'll be uploaded to community.franchise.org, which is where you most likely registered for this webinar. And again, if you want a PDF version of the slides, you can just shoot me an email. My email address is in the chat, and I will send that over to you. But thank you to everyone that joined today, and thank you again, Sean and Nate and Deliver Media, for this awesome presentation. And I hope everyone has a safe holiday season, and we look forward to seeing you guys in San Diego in February.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sydney. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.